Hi everyone, I am A. Nirisha, Assistant Professor in the Department of CSIT working in MLR Institutions of Technology. Today we are going to discuss about arrays in C programming language. So the overview of this lecture is what is an array and also next the types of array. So coming to an array, the definition of an array. An array is a special type of variable used to store some multiple values of same data type at a time. It also can be defined as it is a collection of similar data elements stored in continuous memory locations with a single name. So the difference between variable and an array. In an variable we can store only a single value, but whereas in array we can store some multiple values of similar data type. So consider an example. So for suppose if we have declared int a. So in this a we can store only a single variable. But whereas in array, we can store some multiple values. So the types of array. So the array is been classified based on how the data items will be arranged. So arrays are broadly classified into three categories. One-dimensional or single-dimensional, or else we can also tell it as 1D array. And the next it is two-dimensional array or 2D array, and next multi-dimensional or multi-D array. So coming to the one-dimensional array. So the declaration of an one-dimensional array. As we declared every variable, so here also we need to declare the array. So in C programming language, single-dimensional arrays are used to store list of values of same data type. So we can store the values in row of values. We can store it in row of values. Single-dimensional array, the data is stored in a linear form. So this is the general syntax to create an array. The data type, array name, and next it is the size. The data type specifies about the type of element that array is holding. So as we discussed, the array can hold only the similar data type elements. So only integer values or only float values or only character values we can store in a single array. So multiple data items we cannot store in the array. So the next is the array name. So this is nothing but an identifier and identifying of an array. So we can identify the array by using its name, and the size will tell about the number of elements the array can be hold, and that should be a positive integer. And the next, this is the syntax for the initialization of a values. So here also the syntax is data type. So we need to mention the data type, which data type the array holds, and the next it is an array name, and the next it is a size, and the values, whatever the values you want to give, that you are giving inside the flower brackets separated by a comma. And end of the line we need to give a semicolon. So for example, coming to the declaration, so how we can declare? In an example like, so to declare an array, we can go with the data type. I am taking it as int, and the name of the array I am taking it as ARR, and the next the size is some 10 elements. So which means 10 values I can store in this array. So coming to an example, for suppose if I want to store the complete whole student marks, single subject marks. So that single subject marks, full complete class student marks, I can store it in an array using the data type as float. So the marks will be of float type. So it will be in the decimal point values. So he might get some 0.5 marks also. So the data type we need to take it as a float. And the next marks is the name of my array. And for suppose if I have 20 students in a class, so I need to give the size as a 20. So that this array can hold some 20 student marks. And coming to the initialization syntax. The example for this initialization syntax. So take an example of the data type as integer, and name of the array is ARR, and the size is 5, and the values I am giving it as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So in this way we need to initialize the values to this array, and in this is the example for declaring of an array. So for example, create an array to store some 6 values. So this is the array that I have declared to store some 6 values. So this is nothing but the memory representation of how we can store the array values. So this is nothing but the values, and these are the index, and this values are nothing but the memory location. And this particular memory location, the values are being stored. See here, as we discussed, as we given, the values are 25, 35, 45, 53, 25 and 7. So these are the values of that array. And here we have only a single leaf. So but we have some multiple values. So how to access this multiple values? So for that we are using some index values. So here the array index starts from a 0. So to access the first value, we are using it as ARR of 0. And to access the second value, we are using the ARR of 1. And in an array, to mention the size, we must and should use the square brackets. So of course here we have some 6 elements. So that is the reason why it is ending with the number as 5. So because it is starting from the 0. And as the integer data type has some 4 bytes of memory allocation to store that particular value. So to store the each and every value, there is some 4 bytes of data. To store the particular integer value, we require some 4 bytes of data, and this is storing in a continuous memory allocations. So consider this is the memory allocation at the 100th memory allocation, we have stored that 25 data value. So next 4 bytes is also used to store this 25. So for suppose 100, 101, 102 and 103. These are the 4 bytes that are used to store the 25 value. And next 4 bytes starting from 104, 105, 106 and 107. These 4 bytes are used to store the 25 value. And the next 4 bytes are used to store the 45 value and so on. So each value has some 4 bytes of memory allocation to store that particular value. So based on the data type, if you are using the character data type, so at that time the memory will be allocated only a single byte. So a single byte can store the single character. So coming to an example, how to read that, how to read and how to print some multiple values. So if we have only a single variable, so in a single variable we are just initializing int a is equals to 10. So by using the printf statement, we can directly print that a value if we have a single variable. But in an array, we have some 10 values. In this declared array, we have some 10 values. So we have the capacity to store some 10 values in this A array. So next is, we are asking to read the n. So n is nothing but the array size. If we have the minimum number of requirements, if suppose I have given the size as a 10. But we have the requirement of 5, 6 or 7. So at that time, we need to use this n value. Because to read some elements, to read the array elements, we are using this scanf statement, and to print the array elements, we are using the printf statement inside the for loop. So based on our requirement, if we read the n value, till the n value, we can run this for loop, and that particular n number of values we can read and n number of values we can print. So the reason why we are using a for loop in the array while reading and while printing, that is, for suppose if you have declared the array as a of 100 or some a of 50 or some a of 10. So in this particular arrays, we need to use some 100 scanf statements and 100 printf statements to print the array values. And also in this example, we need to use some 50 scanf statements and 50 printf statements. So that will be very difficult. So for that case, we are using, instead of to avoid that, we have a concept of loops, and the single statement we are adding inside the loop, so that by using those two statements, we can print all the array elements and also we can read all the array elements that we have a requirement. So we are reading the scanf statement, and by using the for loop, we are reading all the array elements. So as we discussed, we are using the subscript here. This is nothing but in the subscript we are using the index values. For suppose, take an example, if I is equals to 0 and 0 less than, consider my n value is some 3. So whatever the value we have given, that value will be read by using the scanf statement, and by using this control string, we are telling it is an integer value, and where we are storing it, we are storing in the address of a of I. So for suppose I have some 3 elements and the elements are 10, 20 and 30, and when we have declared the array, so for that the memory will get allocated for all the 10 elements. So here we are accessing the array elements by using its index values and so on. And the memory allocated was considered 100, 104, 108, 112 and so on. So the 4 bytes of memory will get allocated, and this A, in the A will have some base address. Base address is nothing but the first element address of an array. So this 100 will point to this array. So whenever we are taking this for loop, if I is equals to 0 and 0 less than 3, and the first number that we have given to read is 10. So the 10 will be stored in the address of A of I, which means in the address of A of 1. So here I is 0, so in A of 0. So in the address of A of 0 is nothing but the 100. So in this particular 100 memory location, the 10 value will be stored. And the next I value will be incremented, and I will be equals to 1 and 1 less than or equals to 3, the condition is true. So if it is true, next value will be stored in the address of A of 1. So the address of A of 1 is 104. So the 20 value will be stored here. The next I is equals to 2 and 2 less than 3 is true. It is stored in the address of A of 2. So the 30 value will be stored in the address of A of 2. And the next I will be incremented 3 less than 3, the condition will be false, and we are coming out of this for loop. Even though the memory is allocated for all the 10 values, but we have a requirement of using only 3 elements. So that is the reason why the loop will run and the elements will be read only for the 3 elements. And the next, this is used to print the array elements that are present in the array. So for this also same, we are using the printf statement inside a for loop, and thus loop will run till n number of times. So the same. So if I is equals to 0, 0 less than 3, we are printing the value. What value? A of I. A of I here it is 0. So A of 0 value it is 100. So we can access the values of an array by using its index and also the array name. So to access the first value, we are using A of 0. So the A of 0 value will be 10, and A of 1 value will be 20, and A of 2 value will be 30. So in this way, we are going to access the array elements, and also we are reading and printing the array elements. So we'll run and check the program. So this is a program. So here. So this is an array. I have declared of this array can hold some 10 values, and by using this printf statement, I am asking to enter the array size, and by using this scanf statement, we are reading that n value, and by using this printf statement, we are asking to enter the array elements, and by using this for and a scan, we are reading these array elements. The next, by using the given, we are printing the array elements that are present in the array by using these two statements, for and printf inside the for loop. The same thing as we just now had a look. So we'll just run and see this program. So see, you can find here, it's asking to enter the size. So I'm giving the size as some 4, and it's asking to enter some array elements. So I'm giving some elements like 1, 5, 8 and 3. So we have given the size as 4. So we are giving the 4 number of elements, and whatever the array elements we have given, that are going to be printed. So now we'll find the sum and average of an array elements. So to find the sum and average of an array elements, we require the array elements. So for that, we need to declare an array, and also we need to ask the size. So how many number of elements you have requirement. So if you have more than 10 elements, so at that time you need to increase the size. So not to waste the memory allocation, I'm using only the 10 elements. And then next, by this thing, we need to enter the array elements, and also we are reading those array elements, a number of elements. And next, we need to find the sum. So to find the sum, we are using one statement, that is, like we need to read this array elements, And then next, for that one more variable we have a requirement. So that is, we are adding that sum variable. So sum we are initializing with the value as a 0. And next we are giving here it as sum is equals to sum plus a of I. So we have read the array elements, so no need of the statement again. And the next we need not to print all the array elements, just we are finding the sum, so we need to only print the sum of that array element. So sum of elements equals to %id, and in this place we need to get the value as a sum. And also we are also finding the average. So to find the average of this, we need to write one more statement. Average of elements is equals to %id and the value that should be reflected here is sum by n. So one thing that we are doing here, that is we are giving it as a float, because if you are doing an average, we might get some float values. So if you are dividing something by something, so we'll get some decimal point values. So at that time, the sum is an integer value and n is also an integer value. So we'll get the answer also in an integer value. So to avoid that, we are using this float. So which means the sum we are converting it into float. That means we are typecasting the sum variable. We already learned about it. The typecasting is nothing but we are converting the one data type to the another data type. The integer data type is the sum. So that integer variable that we are converting it into float by using this operator. So the operator is nothing but opening and closing bracket, and in this opening and closing bracket, we need to write the data type to which you want to be converted. So this is a program to find the sum and also the average. So here, by using this statement, we are reading the array elements, and by using this statement, we are finding the sum of the array elements. So as we know, how to find the sum of the elements. So what we are doing is each and every array element we are adding with the sum. So in each and every iteration we are adding one element to this sum variable, so that all elements will be added. So for example, as we take in the previous, if we take the previous example, we have the array size as 3. So which means n is equals to 3 and the array elements are 10, 20 and 30. So in that case, the first element is C. Here we have taken I is equals to 0. So the first element will be read and that element will be added to the sum variable. So the 10, A of 0 is nothing but the 10. So the 10 we are adding to the sum. The sum here we have initialized it as a 0. So 10 plus 0 will be the 10. So the 10 value will be assigned to this sum. And in the next iteration, I will be equals to 1. So the first value will be read and the next A of 1 value will be equals to 20. Sorry. The next value will be equals to 20. So that value we are adding to the sum variable, and the next value will be the 30. So that 30 value we are adding to the sum variable. So after that the loop will be terminated because the condition will be false and we are coming out of the loop, and we are, by using the printf statement, we are giving this sum, and also by using the printf statement, we are finding the average. This will execute and see this program. So it is asking to enter the array size. So because we have given here it as printf, we are asking to enter the array size, and we are giving the array size as some 3. And we are asking in the next statement, we are asking to enter the array elements. So we are giving the array elements are some 10, 20, and the next it is 30. And the next, the array elements are read by using the scanf statement, and also we are adding the each and every element to the sum variable. So see here, we have got the sum of elements is equals to 60 and average of the elements is equals to 20. So if we try to take some other elements, so take the elements, so take the size as a 4 and some of the elements are some like random elements. So see, 24, that is also divisible by 4. So the decimal point values we have got it as a 0, 0. So we'll take one other example. So see, the sum of elements is 157 and the average is 157 by 3. So we'll get the answer as 52 by this. After point, we'll get some 6 decimal values. So if you use this float, like if you typecast the variables, so at that time we'll get the decimal point values, accurate answers. So it is nothing but this is the thing. See, float we have typecasted it. The sum variable we are converted into the float, and we have divided the sum by n. As we know the average, the sum of our array elements by the n number of elements. So we are using whatever the elements we are using, so that n value we have given to find the average. And this is nothing but the real life examples. So like you can store some marks of multiple students in a single subject by using a 1D array. So we can also store some multiple student subjects of different subjects by using a 2D array that we are going to discuss in the next class. And also we can, so using a fitness tracker, the storing steps worked each day for a week. So that thing also we can store in an array. And also we can store some temperature readings in an hourly basis. Thank you.